So it is 1 o'clock. This is the State Board of Education. Is Wednesday, April 15th, 2026. And we will start with a roll call, please.
Brian Campion.
Here.
Mohammed Joe.
Here.
Caleb Greenwood.
Here.
Tammy Colby.
Good afternoon.
Tom Lovett.
Here.
Brianna Marsh.
Here.
Zoe Saunders. Cynthia Stewart.
Here.
Rich Werner.
Here.
Jennifer Deck Samuelson.
Here. Thank you. I have an amendment to the agenda. I'm wondering if there are any others. And Rich, not to put the spotlight on you, but I didn't know. We don't have an update for you, for your committee, and I didn't know if you wanted to be included on the agenda.
I thought you were going to have one. I mean, I can give you a brief update. We met on Tuesday.
Okay, well, not now, but yeah, we'll add that to the agenda for a committee, or for an update from you. And this is the State Aid for School Construction Committee that Rich is chairing.
And for clarification, Mag, did you want a written report before? Is that what you were asking for?
No.
Or just go around and give a little report?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's the first proposed amendment. The second proposed amendment, and I had sent an email to board members yesterday, I've been invited to testify before the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development tomorrow with regard to S313. So I sent a copy of that bill to board members, but what I'd like to do, you didn't get it? I hope you got it. Did anyone get it?
I did.
Okay. I'd like to add some time on the agenda just to have a discussion about it, and if there are any questions, comments, concerns that board members have, I will take notes and then report that out tomorrow when I'm testifying. So those are the two proposed amendments. Absent any objection, we can go ahead and add those to the agenda. Why don't I say, Rich, we can put you in after the agency update and before committee updates? If that's good with you?
Yes.
And then, I don't know, do we have Sarah Buxton on the line?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah, is there a good time for you for us to add the discussion of 313?
Whatever makes sense for you.
Okay.
I'm flexible.
Well, why don't we do it right after public to be heard, if that's good with you?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other amendments to the agenda?
Wait, the first public to be heard or the second?
The first one. So
The first one,
momentarily,
okay.
Momentarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Any other amendments to the agenda? Great. Okay. With that, if there are any members of the public who wish to address the board, I don't see anyone physically with us today. If anyone is with us virtually, oh, we do have someone with us today. Thank you. Anyone who is online, if you want to raise your hand using the hand icon on the Teams platform, or *5 if you happen to be calling in. But with no further ado, if you'd like to come sit at the table and just make sure that you're in front of one of the microphones. Welcome.
My name is Eric Saltonstall.
Excuse me, sir. We'll have this close to you.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, thank you.
How about there? Hi, my name is Eric Saltonstall. I live in Windsor, Vermont. I'm going to the Vermont Adult Learning Program. It's in Springfield, Vermont. And my concern is about the way the grading system is. For me, it's kind of difficult to understand, because my understanding it goes like 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I was told that at the school, no one gets a 6, which makes no sense to me. Whether it's a GED or a high school diploma in that program, because my understanding is there is a 6, and 6 represents 11th and 12th grade. And so if nobody gets a 6, then the highest achieved is 10th grade. But even with those numbers, let's say we get back to 6, when a person gets a 6 and graduates, are they actually graduating with a complete 12th grade education, or are they graduating with 11th grade education And at what part of the grading system do they stand in, as far as when I went to school years ago, regular high school back in the 80s, you had an A, B, C, D, and you had, like, if you got everything complete, you had 100%. The more you got wrong, the less of a number you got, which gave you an understanding of where you were at. Meaning if you just barely passed, and I believe it was 65 at the time, then you knew there was so much more that you should have learned and that you didn't learn, and you need to learn, or should learn. And nowadays, with the number system, when you're at 6, not only do you not know if you have 11th grade education or 12th grade education, even though you would have a certificate of completion, you don't know where you would stand as if you just barely passed 11th grade with a certificate that shows you completed all through 12th grade. So I'd like to have this board consider reevaluating the grading system and change it accordingly, so when a person does get a grade, they understand where they're at, whether they've learned everything or should have learned everything or did learn everything, or there's things that they need to study more or should study more. And then there was another part here where I have these neck issues that make me forget. It's usually while I'm talking. It's along the same lines. Oh, now I remember. So at a completion of a test, say when you got one question wrong, as an example, I've asked what was the question and answer, or the answer I got wrong to the question, and I've been told that they don't know, the people who do the teaching. And so the student, my end, won't be able to know, so they won't be able to know what they need to look into to make sure they can understand everything, because if what they got wrong is going to be applied further in life, and they don't have it correct, what they do in life is going to be wrong. So I specifically came here for that meeting for those reasons.
Thank you.
As well as Jennifer Frank, we spoke on the phone, or Jennifer Samuelson, excuse me. We spoke on the phone several times, and for different reasons.
Yes. Thank you for coming. And what I would say, unless board members have any comments, is if you can provide your contact information and leave it with Suzanne, I can connect you. Yes, yes, that's Suzanne. But let me see what I can find out, and I'll point you in the right direction.
Okay, I got other issues with the Vermont adult learning, but I'm not sure if that pertains to this meeting, so I'll start with that one point, I'll leave my contact information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other members of the public who wish to address the board? There is a hand up there? Okay, thank you. I do see a hand raised if you'd like to, yes. Is that Kim?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Jennifer. Kim Gleason, Grand Isle. And I'm just popping on quickly. I saw the agenda. I'm going to try and listen and hear some status on the committees. But I had a couple of questions following up from last time, and I know it's not to be responded to now, but the secretary had mentioned that there were a few of the independent schools who had not completed the annual attestation. And when I followed up with you, Jennifer, you said that it was going to be referred to the 2200 committee, and that meeting had been canceled. And I don't know if they've been referred or who that was or if that's been remedied. I know that that was a very intentional part of the work that we did in putting the 2200 series rules together. So I'm looking forward to knowing what the status on that is. And you know, if they're still outstanding, who those schools are and what that process is going to look like. And then secondly, on the class size minimums, that committee appears not to have been meeting. And I know that it is potentially the case that some of those dates are going to move out a bit. But I think the guidance to the field was only provided to the public schools. And that section of 73 applies to all schools receiving public tuition. And that is the only thing in the universe. And it is really not particularly helpful guidance even for those who received it. So I look forward to seeing that addressed, and it doesn't appear as though it's even had any meetings convened on the topic. I did notice as I looked through the directory that the AOE has for those who are eligible to receive public tuition, that after the first, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 independent schools that are still approved to receive public tuition, the enrollment figures and the grades served, and I'm excluding therapeutic schools, suggest that they will never meet class size minimums. And while I understand they were eligible by virtue of the fact that 25% of their enrollment comes from public tuition, I think that might have been an oversight to think that if their enrollment itself is so small, they would get to a place of meeting class size minimums. So I think that there is information there that could benefit the legislature to sort of address that reality. And the notion that in public school districts, class size minimums might be remedied by merging schools, for instance, or re-establishing the way grades are configured across a school district by virtue of the buildings or other configurations. That is not a remedy for independent schools. And so I'm not sure what that process would look like in terms of remedying it over the course of 3 years. So I think this is a flaw in the current status of the legislation, and I would hope maybe the State Board of Ed could highlight that for its attention in the legislature as they're working through these adjustments to Act 73. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Any other members of the public who wish to address the board? I do point out we do have an agency update, and we also have committee updates. So I know Kim has raised some issues that may be addressed when we get to that point in our agenda. All right, I'm going to leave public comment open just for a little bit longer, but as mentioned, I'm going to move to this new agenda item to include a discussion of S313. So let me just pull that up. Hang on. Sorry, I should have been prepared here. Okay, so S313 is an act relating to transforming Vermont's career technical education system. This was a bill that was passed out of Senate Ed, and it is now with the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. So specifically, there on page 1 of the bill, there is clear direction that's being given to the State Board of Ed to update its Rule Series 2370, which is the rule series that pertains to career and technical education. And then on page 2, there's also this directive to the State Board that we submit a copy of the proposed CTE rules developed pursuant to subsection A to the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development on or before January 15th, 2027. And then beyond that, I mean, certainly I can testify about anything, but those were the two major areas that pertain to the State Board of Ed. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to run through that, and if anyone has any feedback, I am taking notes.
Jennifer, I think the one comment that might be helpful to remind the legislature of the importance of making sure that Rule 2370, the CTE rules, stay in parallel with the EQS, the 2200 rules, and the special education rules. Those being sort of the core canon of rules, right, that talk about the what and how in terms of how students learn in the state. And it's going to be really important that those 4 rules continue to work together going forward. I don't know that there's an implication in S313 for that not to happen, but it might be important to remind them that that should be an important starting point. The second thing is I am a little confused, and maybe this is just my not understanding governance well, but it seems quite unusual that we would be asked to return a rule back to the legislature before it went through the formal rulemaking process, and I'm unclear what the expectation on the part of the state board would be out of that process, right? Is that for them to do some sort of supplemental review and approval before we entered into formal rulemaking? Is it an opportunity for some general feedback or comment, right? But that seems quite an unusual request, and there is a formal process through LCAR, right, for the legislature to review our rules. So
Yeah.
I'm curious about that, and I just thought I'd put those were the 2 things.
Well, and it's unclear, too, as I read that, if you think about the APA rulemaking process that's set forth in statute, it is 8 months from the time you open a rule until the time it has to come before LCAR. And it's not even really 8 months because there's, pre-filing deadlines, and we have to get it to LCAR within a certain, you have to back up from the 8-month deadline to figure out when you need to submit it to LCAR in time for LCAR to review it prior to the expiration of the 8-month deadline. So what the State Board of Ed has done in the past is we've done a lot of pre-work where we meet with stakeholders, we take testimony, and spend a lot of time really crafting the updates before we officially open the rule and start that 8-month clock, because that 8-month clock is really not a lot of time, particularly when you're dealing with something as voluminous as the CTE rules, which have not been updated, I think, since 2016. And, to Tammy's point, we still need to do the same update to that rule series as we did with EQS and 2200 in response to Act 1. So we have a lot of work to do with CTE. What's not clear to me is whether us going back to the legislature in January is before we begin the official APA 8-month timeframe, or if that's somehow in the middle of the 8-month timeframe. If it's the latter, that would be particularly problematic because that will basically make it impossible for us to meet that 8-month deadline. If it's the former, I think that's a conversation, and just from what I can surmise, I think they're planning to continue to work on this in the next legislative session, and the idea would be that they would be able to provide us with updates, but that's not even possible either because it's a January 2020, so there wouldn't be any work that they would be doing anyway.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, to your point, I think we have a really open process for working on rules before they enter the formal APA process, and certainly I would invite and encourage the legislature to be part of that conversation with us. And we oftentimes have legislatures doors come in for committee meetings and give input on things, but that particular provision feels, I don't understand what the goal is with that, and it doesn't work with either of the timelines that you suggest. So it might be helpful to understand what their thinking is around that and the expectations for that conversation.
Thank you.
Also, just coming off the Student Performance Standards Committee meeting from last night, some of the things that were asked to review in that first bullet point, things like embedded academics, credit standards, competency-based pathways, those things are up before that committee. So I don't know if that was the list of committees that Tammy mentioned earlier, but there are a lot of things that are in discussion now that won't be resolved according to this timeline.
So wait, explain that to me. So are you saying that a lot of the things that are in S313 are also things that are being considered by the Student Performance Standards Committee?
Yes.
Okay. So do you see that as a conflict, or is it because there would be a potential for inconsistency?
I just think it's a timeline question.
Okay.
And to build on that, just back to my original point, I think it's important to remind ourselves and everyone that the 2370 rules need to be compatible and aligned with the other rules and the other standards that are out there. And so we got to think about how to move these things together. And that involves timing. It also involves substance, right?
Okay, thank you, Tom. Other comments or questions, concerns?
No.
Okay. Sarah, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, but I'll wait till all the members have weighed in.
I don't know that other board members had things to add, so
Okay.
we can turn it to you.
I just wanted to point out some of the things that I would see in this. As your counsel, Tammy nailed it. I think there is a very serious conflict with having this check back period in the middle of the APA process. What they're doing by having this check back is kind of changing the APA procedural requirements without expressly changing them. And I think that there is that conflict with the APA that represents and that pulls in is a bit of a separation of powers problem, where once the legislative branch designates rulemaking power to the executive branch, which would be, the state board, they need to articulate an intelligible principle. An intelligible principle isn't give it your first shot and then why don't you come back and let us tell you whether you got it right or wrong. That means that we don't have enough of an intelligible principle if they're suggesting it needs to go in a certain direction. So just that in and of itself is a problem. The timeline is certainly a problem, but I think that the even bigger issue is that the other part of the bill not involving us is that while the board is being asked to go and update rules as they exist on July 1, 2026, there's also created this legislative working group. And this working group is to go forward and come back not only with like a transformational vision and policy, but also with specific legislative language. And the way that check back to the legislature seems to be operating in this bill is that we would go and put forth rules, or we would start to propose those rules for the system that's in place as of July 1, 2026. And then there would be substantial legislation that it anticipates adopting during the next legislative session that would transform the CTE system. Our rules presumably wouldn't be through and complete until the following summer because of these timelines. And so what you really have here is a real inefficiency in terms of writing rules that are just going to have to be thrown out the window and rewritten again anyway if the whole system's going to be changed, substantially. And I think the other challenge that I happen to have previous professional experience with in this issue is that over the last 15 years or so, the legislature has evidenced by the fact that this bill is not before education, it's before commerce and economic development. The legislature has assigned responsibilities for credentialing systems, determining credentials, career pathways, and alignment thereof to both the State Workforce Development Board and the Vermont Department of Labor. And so not to say that the state board wouldn't obviously acknowledge those as really important stakeholders to come in and be part of the rulemaking, but I think the legislature needs to reflect on 4 or 5 bills that they passed over the last several years that these rules would certainly perhaps come into play with some of those other administrative functions. So I wanted to highlight those items. It appears as though this is a strike all. So this will be the first time really that the committee, well, I think they took some testimony yesterday, but when you are before the committee tomorrow, Jennifer, along with other participants, I assume that there's going to be some more conversation about really, like, as to Tammy's point, like, what are you trying to accomplish? Finally, prior to me joining you by contract, I believe you had reported to me, Jennifer, that you and Tammy had a conversation with the agency at one point, and you had extended an offer that I believe remains open, that from a programmatic perspective, when the agency is in need of having, for Perkins funding or for whatever need, when they need to have the rules updated and when they've gotten their proposed, package together, that they would bring it to us and we would start that process. So I don't think we've ever closed the door to that. That's always been open. I don't think we necessarily need to be told to do that if this is being driven because the agency has a particular need.
Great. Yeah, and I'm just looking through.
And Sarah, you are remembering correctly, right? We have a committee that's ready to take on the CTE rules. Lyle was/is chairing that committee. And I think where we had left things is that the agency was going to give us a marked up copy of the rules that were consistent with the policy advice that they were promoting. But I know there's just been a lot of discussion. I know there isn't anyone from the agency, but my guess is that a lot of that terrain is not very settled at the moment, and so they haven't gotten back to us on that. So, but you are correct. We have been ready to catch.
That offer is always.
Yeah, no, we've been ready to catch when they throw, but I think they've been holding off on throwing till they could figure out what the mark was they were throwing at.
Right. And I think that the shifting landscape is exactly the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it hard to engage in rulemaking. And it, from a human and financial perspective, is a little inefficient to, in my opinion, try to engage in rulemaking when things are shifting in live time.
And I think both the agency and the state board have recognized that opening up the CTE rules is a labor intensive and going to be quite an effort. And so I think we only want to do this once.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, this is all very helpful. So I will appear tomorrow and
This is the House Markets Committee?
Yes, exactly. So I will report back at next month's meeting. But thank you all.
I have a related question. It just occurred to me because Lyle, we probably need to reconstitute the CTE committee too.
So right now, it's you, Tom, I think.
Tom and Rich
Yeah. Do I still have
and
that?
Lyle is the chair. But
Well, Lyle has been taken off as the chair.
Lyle's taken off
Like
as chair.
his-
Do we need an action on that? I guess what I was saying, do we need to, not at this meeting, do we need to do something to change the, I'm just going back to, we
Yeah.
changed sort of our procedures around establishing committees, and I didn't know if we needed to go back and,
I mean,
do some
I
work
have
on
been
that?
delegated to appoint people to the committee. So right
Okay.
now, it's you, Tom, Rich, and Mohammed are sitting on that committee. And I'll let you guys
noticing a common theme here.
figure out, I mean, if someone would like to be the chair, please let me know, otherwise, and if anyone else would like, well, I was going to say that, I don't think I can put anyone else on the committee right now, given that we don't have a replacement for Lyle, because if I put a fifth person, that would be a quorum issue. So if anyone strongly feels like they would like to be on that committee, or not, let me know.
And let's talk about some more. To Tom's point, some of the work that I think the CTE committee is going to need to do is going to be highly related to what the grad standards committee is going to be doing. And the standards committee is the holdover from the EQS, which is like, and it happens to be the same people.
But that's probably not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So let's just think about that. It might make sense for us to be thinking, forward thinking on some of the CTE work as we're doing the work on the grad standards, even though, right, because
it's not officially open, but
it's not officially open, but it's all going to be the same thing, right? And two of the people on that committee are going off the board next year.
Right. Right.
As Tom and I look at each other.
All right.
Because that institutional knowledge is going to be big.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This was a good conversation, and I will take that back with me when I meet tomorrow with the House committee. Okay, I'm going to circle back one last time for now for public to be heard. I'm not seeing anyone, so I'm going to close that for now. We do have an opportunity again at the end. And I'm going to move on to a motion to approve the draft meeting minutes of our March 19th, 2026 meeting. Is there a
I
motion?
move.
Moved by Tammy. Second? Seconded by Mohammed. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 19th, 2026, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, the motion carries.
And a thank you once again to Suzanne.
Yes. Thank you, Suzanne.
Yes.
Having done meeting minutes,
Yes.
I know enough about them to know that I'm very grateful to Maureen and Suzanne for preparing the minutes for us. All right, board announcements. I should have done this like at the top, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that the State Board of Ed is in Burlington today. We were in Edmonds Elementary. We had a tour of both the elementary school and the middle school. We saw part of the middle school, what's the word I'm looking for, assembly, and got to pop into some of the classrooms. I actually got to help a first grader sound out the word happen, which was really fun. But just great to see the kids in action. There's a lot going on at this school. And as Tammy pointed out too, it's one of the larger school districts, so they have the ability to innovate and really meet special needs and interests within the school building. So it's really fun to see the programs that they've got going on. We had a fantastic lunch this afternoon, but just really appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you. My other announcement is we do have a student member, Caleb, who will be transitioning off the board when he graduates. Caleb's term ends on June 30th, and then we will then be taking on a new student member to serve a 2-year term. Brianna will move into the senior position. But anyone who knows of students who might be interested in joining the state board for 2 years, the first year is non-voting, second year is voting. The application is on the governor's website. There's also an announcement on the agency website, the State Board of Ed website, and of course, interested people can also email Maureen and Suzanne for more information. But I think the governor's office will probably start conducting interviews within the next few weeks. So.
And may I ask the two of you, how did you find out about this?
I figured out, excuse me, I figured out from my teacher.
So your teacher shared the information?
She shared it on our Google Classroom. She
Okay.
had posted a link and said, like, there's this thing going on.
Yeah.
If you're interested, check it out.
Great.
So that's all I figured
Brianna?
out.
Yeah, I actually found out through a family friend because
Okay.
she's also a teacher. And she saw it posted on Facebook actually, and she sent it to my parents and was wondering if I'd be interested.
Yeah, I wonder if the NEA and School Boards Association, or maybe Superintendents or Principals Association might send this around. And I can talk to Suzanne and Maureen about that, if that's all right with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd
just
be
to
great.
get more folks out there to know
I know
about
the
it. It's
agency
hard
did
to
a nice
find.
job posting it on their Facebook page that a lot of people track.
Yeah, I know no students that track the Agency of Education Facebook page, but maybe I'm traveling in different circles, so I think it might be helpful for teachers. I like that idea of people talking about it in classrooms. Great, thanks.
All right, other board announcements? All right. Hearing none, Caleb, will turn it to you to kick off the student report.
All right. Well, to kick it off easy, 10 minutes away, all my friends are going to be at a track meet, so I'll probably hop in over there after the meeting, because the first event is going to be at like 4:15, so I won't be able to stay the whole time, because they're not going to get home till it's dark out. I remember having a couple of those last year, so I'm not doing track this year because of my shoulder, so that's been most of my time is recovering, but I've been recovering well. I think I'm either 7th week post-op, or 6.5 weeks. I don't know. I've been doing PT for like 3 weeks, so that's been going really well. Obviously, spring sports are going. I'm not sure when our first baseball, softball games are, but I know that they're coming up for sure. I know that they have a scrimmage really soon, so games are to come. Tracks, obviously, super exciting. my family's super involved in it, and my mom will always go to like the local meets, and she'll take pictures. So that's greatly appreciated for them, because for our like sports page, they always put up like a picture of the event, and so usually it's my mom's pictures. Our NHS chapter recently went to, so we prepared these like goodie bags kind of, and they had like one book, there's like some like fidgets and stuff, whatever else in them, and we had seniors and juniors go to the local kindergartens and do like book readings and stuff with them. So that was super fun. They did that last week, I believe. So they got out for like half a day. They went over to the local elementaries, which in our district, I don't know what they are actually, because of the consolidation. I'm not sure which schools have the kindergartners. But that's been not going horribly. I think there's a big gap in understanding of how it works, the consolidation. Because I was talking to like my grandmother who graduated from Lake Region forever ago. And she was talking about how it really is like hard to understand when you're not really included in the loop, because it's like, well, 5th and 6th graders are gonna go to this school, and then 4th and 3rd graders are gonna go to that school. And it's like, okay, how do you figure out what grades are going to what school, and also which schools are paired with each other to switch? And like, even after explaining it, she still had a hard time like fully grasping it. So that's been a challenge, I think, is the community understanding of how it works. Like obviously the families, you know, kind of forced to figure it out, gotta know where your kid's going. But other than that, I think there's definitely a gap in understanding.
So can you explain, like, is there a school that's being closed and the kids are being put into different schools, or?
We're doing a sister school model. So we have, I believe, 8 elementary middle schools, so K through 8 schools. We don't have a junior high. North Country obviously does. We do not. So it's like kindergarten, 1st graders, I'll say like Albany and Glover. Actually, I think that either Albany and Glover are a pair, or Glover, Irisburg. I'll say Albany, Glover for the sake of an example. So the kindergartners and 1st graders from both Glover and Albany will go to one of the two. So we'll say they both go to Glover. But then the 2nd and 3rd graders from both schools will go to Albany, pair up all the way up.
Okay.
So they switch, it's supposedly to save resources. I don't know how true that is, but that was their reasoning behind it. I think there's a big teacher problem in our district, especially in Irisburg. I have a lot of friends that grew up and went through the Irisburg system, and they've spoke to the difficulties that were faced in that school. So I think there was also a solution to that, which that part I think is true. I can comment on that it helps when there's a teacher shortage to combine them a bit. And I think initially there were worries about like, because this was before it was fully finalized, so like basically no one knew how it was working. They're like, because there was a concept like, oh, half of the Irisburg kids from the class will go to one, and then the other half will stay there. So it's like, oh, well, you're gonna mess up, you know, like socially it's gonna mess them up. You're gonna have different bus routes, and it was super convoluted. So I think it was a good medium, because they did have to do something. So I think they figured out a way that wasn't the worst case solution, which sometimes is the best solution. And then I am committed to GW.
Yay!
That's my final piece. And then I just scheduled my orientation as well, because that's required. So I have to go down there before I go down there.
So do they have an admitted student stay that you're going to go to as well, or?
I don't think that's going to be in the cards just because of the hall.
Yeah.
So I will go down to orientation though, because that's required to go down there. So I'll be going down in June, and then obviously in August.
Super exciting.
Great school.
Thank you.
Questions for Caleb? All right, Brianna.
Okay, so there hasn't really been much change at my school, but recently our theater just ended last Saturday, actually. We did 5 shows. We do 2 during like the actual school day, so like elementary kids can come up, or we actually invite some of the elderly too, which is very nice, I think. And then our softball and baseball, they're finally outside now, out of the gym, And they actually, I think, have some games coming up. I think it starts next week. And then for track, they actually just had their first meet yesterday. So that's exciting. And then recently, I'm very grateful because our school got together with Gear Up. I don't know if you guys know it, like Gear Up leads. It like helps like financially and all that. And one of the people that run it, her name's Cassidy, she actually helped set up like SAT days for juniors. So we did like 3 separate days, and like one of them was dedicated to like taking a PSAT. And then we did an English dedicated day and then a math dedicated day. And we were actually fortunate enough for a math teacher and an English teacher to stay with us after school and help us out there. So I think that was very helpful because I think all juniors are finally signed up for an SAT on May 2nd, which is kind of nerve-wracking, so we'll hope it goes good. And then recently there's been a lot of talk surrounding prom, because that's also coming up. I think that's going to be like May 16th, somewhere around there. So prom committee has been getting together and figuring out location, which is actually going to be at Dartmouth Skiway, so we'll see how that goes. And our theme for it's going to be Starry Night, so I think that'll be good. And recently, actually, I brought this up last meeting, and I believe the meeting before, is that we talked about phone stuff, but we never really implemented a plan. We actually now have yonder pouches. So I believe it started last Monday. In your first period, you got a yonder pouch, and you were assigned it. And now every single day, like when you first walk in, there's like a table set up. And like a teacher is stationed at it, and you have to like show that you're putting your phone in the yonder pouch and like lock it in front of her, and then you're good to go. And then at the end of the day, I think they call, I'm not really 100% sure because I'm at Riverbend, so I don't hear the announcements at Oxbow, but I think they call it by grade. So like I think like juniors go at like 2 o'clock or something, and you have to go and get it unlocked, and like they have like this like magnet, and it like, I think you just like set the yonder pouch next to it and like take it out. Not really sure, but they've been very strict with it actually. And then recently we just got an email about it, is that some kids aren't following this, like the rules. So they sent out an email saying that there's now gonna be random bag checks, and they're gonna have to go into the classroom and they're gonna ask for the yonder pouch. And if you show that it's empty, they're gonna search your bag. Cause a lot of kids say that they have it in their car, which they're okay with that. But then some kids don't actually put it in their car. So now there's gonna be those bag searches. So we'll see how that goes. And then,
May I ask, like, is it like, are you noticing in class, or people, or have people generally been pretty respectful, or teachers?
I feel like they're pretty respectful with it. Our main concern for it was, well, like the law got pushed forward, and I guess there was like some bullying going on online. So like their plan with the yonder pouch was to like lock the phone away, so you can't do like any recordings at school or any photos at school. So like I feel like there's like a good idea behind it, and I feel like they like mean well, but in reality I feel like kids are now trying to figure out ways how to get out of the yonder pouch, or like ways around the system, which a lot of them already have. So I feel like that's an issue, is that like it's almost like when you know you can't have something, they want it more. Because I feel like that's been a big issue, is that kids are just not following the system, which I think is why they are now pushing for bag searches. So we'll see how that continues. And then we have NHS, which is our National Honors Society. And right now they are currently planning a color run and like a marathon coming up to try to raise some money.
So are you a member of NHS?
I am, yes.
And you're taking the SAT on May 2nd?
I am.
Is this the first time you will have taken it?
Yes, this will be. I'm a little nervous. I got to study before, but I took a PSAT, so it went okay. So I'm hoping that this one will go pretty good. But there's also another one that you can take in June, I'm pretty sure. So I think like if you don't like how this one goes, you can retake it, or you can wait till like senior year, I think around like October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there should be a date in October and November, I believe.
And I'm just curious, when you were applying to colleges, did you submit your SAT score?
I did. My score wasn't great. Granted, how much did I study? I can't
Seems like it ended up okay.
Well, at least you're owning it,
I had
Caleb.
like a 30 super score, so it wasn't great. But if you know how to use Desmos, you can get like a 800 on the math. Like you can max out the math. It's really just about knowing how to use Desmos, because in the words of a SAT math tutor, SAT math is not real math. They ask you to solve for things that you'll never solve for in any other type of math. they ask you to do equations that you're never going to use outside of the SAT. So basically, if you know how to use Desmos, you can do it.
All right, and for people in the audience who don't know what that is, can you explain
So
that?
Desmos is a graphing calculator, but
Okay.
it's also online. Like it's a website, and they offer it on the SAT. So you can like plug in equations and stuff like that. So it's like if it asks you for the center point of a circle, you just put in the equation for the circle, and it tells you what the center point is. You don't have to actually do any math. You just plug it in. And there's always like sneaky ways.
I feel like you're exposing a loophole here.
It's a very public loophole. Like if you can go on YouTube and just watch Desmos guides for the SAT, and that'll set you up.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Let's get that in the public record.
It's very public, I feel.
So if I'm wondering, because it's been a few years since I paid attention to this, but how many schools are SAT optional? Did you find that there are any that actually require
Optional schools.
that you?
I think through COVID, it was more schools were turning toward test optional, but now it's going back the other way, where more schools are starting to want test scores again. So both, I guess, would be the answer. Because some have kind of stayed with that. So I think net from like since 2020, more schools are test optional, but since like 2023, more schools have gone toward wanting test scores.
And the last time I was on the National Merit Board, PSATs were kind of falling out of favor.
Yeah.
But are they, do most kids take PSATs or no?
I think it's a mix. I don't think you necessarily need to take one to know what you're doing, but I don't think it's a bad thing to do either. So it's definitely a mix.
Yeah, I think at my school it was actually not common to take the PSAT. Like some juniors did, which I mean is more obvious, but not as many as I was expecting, because I think we have like 70-ish kids in my junior class, and I think only like 20 took the PSAT or around that. Like it was not a lot. And then there was like 1 or 2 sophomores, but still, I would have expected more.
Yeah, I took the SAT twice. I took the PSAT sophomore year, and I didn't do any other ones. And I took the SAT twice.
What percentage of the students would you say take sort of these prep courses, you know, that sometimes can cost a lot of money? Give a sense of
Very low for
Very low,
mine.
okay.
Like my Gear Up leads, they did those like practice, those little preps for us.
Yeah.
And in reality, it was only like roughly like 15 kids that actually went, and there's like 70 at least in my junior class. So, and I don't think any sophomores went to it either. So I think it is very, very low.
very low.
Yeah,
Same.
Similar for me. I mean, I'm in Upward Bound, and that was the only SAT prep I did.
Okay.
Like, other than the independent.
Yeah.
But
And there's so much free prep now online,
yeah,
which wasn't
I
there
think
before.
YouTube is the greatest
Yeah.
source
Oh,
of
that's
SAT.
great.
Yeah.
I've also heard people do like Khan Academy or something.
Yeah,
Khan
Academy too.
and ChatGPT will give you an entire, no, really, yeah.
will,
Yeah, it does the entire
great.
thing for you. So people aren't paying for classes.
All right. Well, this was a really good update. Thank you both. Oh, Rich does? Oh, Rich.
I'm sorry, Rich what?
Your
Your hand was raised.
Oh, not on mine.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It doesn't show it's raised.
Well, no worries. And I don't see it raised now, so I think that was a false alarm. Okay, carry on.
We're watching you, Rich. We just want you to know.
No sleeping.
Now he's muted. Yeah.
I was trying to remember when I took the test too, and how much fun it was.
All right. Well, this concludes our student report. I'm going to move on to an update from the agency. So unfortunately, neither Zoe Saunders nor Jill Briggs-Campbell are able to be with us today, but I do believe we have Emily Simmons standing by to provide an update on behalf of the agency. So Emily, welcome.
Thank you so much, and apologies. Yeah, we had some last-minute coverage issues for this time, but pleasure to be with you all. So two things that Secretary Saunders asked me to update you on. And the first is an update on the agency's work underway on the strategic planning steering committees. I believe she's spoken to you about these in the past. These are committees the agency has established to really gain a shared understanding with stakeholders of the AOE strategic pillars that will be part of our strategic plan. They'll also validate key goal areas within each of those strategic pillars and then begin to identify priorities for improvement, for really measurable improvement. So we're really encouraged. There are more than 100 representatives from across the education community who are participating in the steering committees. There are 5, just to refresh your memory. The 5 steering committees are elevating academic excellence, enhancing special education and differentiated supports, expanding college and career readiness, improving operational effectiveness, and finally, promoting safe and healthy schools. So each of those have begun to meet over the course of the March meetings. We were pleased to see several clear and consistent themes that have emerged across these committees. We're really hearing our stakeholders in the field echo back to us the importance of coherent and aligned systems that support academic excellence. Stronger and more responsive systems of support for students with all diverse needs. Clear pathways connecting K-12 experiences to college, career, and community opportunities after graduation. Operational systems that are efficient, transparent, and supportive to the field. And then safe, inclusive, and healthy learning environments where students can all thrive. So far, we're pleased to observe that these themes align with our strategic framework that we've been working on and engaged in over the past 18 months. Of course, no one thinks that these focus areas are new. They're really a reaffirmation and a validation of the direction that we have been trying to set as an agency. So each steering committee, just on a very practical level, is facilitated by AOE staff who help to guide the conversations and provide organization of the materials, and then of course ensure that the feedback within the committee is captured and thoughtfully shared. Next steps are that the committees will continue to meet monthly. They'll move into the next phase of work, which is to help refine measurable targets and actionable strategies that will advance the shared strategic vision for the state. We're hoping that these insights, along with other work happening at the AOE across our divisions, will all come together to shape our future strategic plan. So that's been a large number of AOE staff pitching in to support these and lead these steering committees, and something that will continue through the next several months.
Thank you.
Second, we wanted to brag on some work happening at the agency, including some important cross-divisional work happening lately. So first of all, you were speaking about CTE earlier. Wanted to highlight that 31 Vermont CT educators are going to attend the National Professional Learning and Innovation Summit, which is the National CTE Conference happening in DC, April 20th through 23rd. That's coming up. Representatives from our state will be from 9 CTE centers, from Community College of Vermont, and from the AOE, along with a representative from Vermont Works for Women. The attendees are looking forward to hearing from national presenters for their professional development, and then we'll meet again back in Vermont as Vermont attendees on May 15th. Looking forward to that meeting where they will come together to work with resources and best practices to inform statewide CTE professional development for next school year. Second, brag on our accountability division, academics, and safe and healthy schools team, which representatives met with folks from Vermont's Educational Equity Collective last week and discussed the agency's strategic goals and considerations for ensuring equity in all policies across the agency and across the field, and preserving the updated Act 1 provisions within EQS, consistent with other work that we're doing. Folks reported it was an incredibly productive collaborative meeting, and they're looking forward to engaging more in the future. And then finally, some professional development that we thought was really well attended. Several curriculum directors and our chief academic officer, Erin Davis, led a session on comprehensive needs assessments as part of a school improvement panel that we held on March 24th. We had about 40 educators join live and 30 additional views asynchronously on YouTube. These trainings are open to all, but really targeted toward identified schools to inform their work for their comprehensive needs assessment. So that's just a glimpse, not hitting everything, just some highlights of what's going on these days at AOE.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah. Nice to see you. Can you just say a little bit more about the curriculum directors, the kinds of professional development work they're engaged in?
I probably can't, as the third-hand messenger.
Sure.
I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm being a little deficient.
No, that makes sense. I'm sorry. I can always, I have
yeah.
to talk to Jill anyhow next week, so she and I can talk, or I can reach out to Erin.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? I don't know if you heard the public comment that Kim Gleason submitted at the beginning of the meeting, where she was wondering about the independent schools that were not compliant with the annual assurance form. I think after our last meeting, I'm pretty sure that I did respond to Kim, but basically I know it's in our Rule Series 2200 that if there is a school that is not in compliance, that the agency, the process is the agency brings that school to the attention of the 2200 committee. The 2200 committee would meet with the school and then bring its recommendation before the full board. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but if you do, I'm opening it up.
Right, that's the process. I did hear in the public comment that that meeting was canceled. I don't know the purpose for the cancellation, but that will stay on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thanks. Anything else?
I'll just, I've seen the agenda for the next 2200 committee meeting. I don't know if that's on that agenda at this point. So I don't know of those schools.
We'll take that as a follow-up to get back to you, Tom.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, Emily, thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for stepping in at the last
Thanks,
minute.
all.
Thanks, Emily.
Sorry, I didn't have more information. Have a good meeting.
Good to see you.
Okay, so this brings us to committee updates, and as promised, we're going to put Rich in at the top here just to provide an update on the State Aid for School Construction Committee.
And again, we had a meeting on Monday, and it was a really interesting meeting. One of the members, David Epstein, spent 45 minutes going over what a modern school should look like. He went through elementary school through to a high school and some different modeling they used. And we also met with Bob Donahue, who's been coming to our meetings from the Department AOE, who is, I believe, like the last, and Suzanne may know better, but he's been hired to work, or he's working with the school construction aid. He's been very helpful. He brought up the fact that there is a bill before in the House, floating around the House, and you're going to have to give me 1 second because I got to find it. It is H955, and it actually almost made our committee like a full-time, gave us a lot of stuff to do that seemed like it was way over what we should be doing. So we did ask that, the board asked that I send a memo or a notice to the, to I believe it was Ways and Means, the House Ed, and a third group to ask them, just let them know that the board felt that was a lot more than what we could accomplish in 6 meetings during the year, and that we had board members who'd be willing to testify before them. And I know Suzanne sent it out for me yesterday morning. We haven't heard back, and that's pretty much where we're at. Our next meeting will be in June, where we hope to start working a little bit closer with, a little bit more with Bob Donahue. One of our charges is to review AOE policies, procedures, and help assist and add comment to material that they present. So that's what we shall have on the agenda in June. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the email. You sent it to House Ways and Means, House Education, and House Appropriations.
Appropriations was the other one. Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew we sent it to 3 different groups, but I get very confused with the legislature.
Rich?
And I will say that, again, Suzanne's been very helpful, and also that I called Jennifer because I was at my wit's end on what I was supposed to do and how I was supposed to do that. And Jennifer was prepping for a meeting with a few other of y'all, and but she always sets me in the right direction too. So I appreciate all of you.
Rich, in your committee, I know that the legislature is considering, or there's been some discussion around these professional entities that build schools and are responsible for their upkeep and maintenance for a period of time. And I know there's a group out of Providence, and then there's what's been done down in PG County in Maryland. Is that who was talking to you? Those groups, or who did you hear from? You said you were hearing about a modern school. Is that who you were talking to,
Yeah.
or?
No, David Epstein and Suzanne may know. I don't know if she can jump in, but David's a member of the committee, and he either works or has a firm that works with school districts on designing schools, and he's been on a lot of the different committees that have come out of legislature. Very knowledgeable, and he kind of just walked us through how they go about working with the school district to determine what their needs are. And they have a basic square footage per pupil, but different classes and different, if you have multiple grades versus single grades. It was a really, really good presentation. I think we could, I'm pretty sure we have a copy of the presentation that we can get if people want. I found it really interesting. One of our board members who's worth the bond bank, Michael Kahn, had said, how can we kind of make decisions on what should be being paid for in school construction if we don't know what's really needed for school construction? You know, what should be included? So that was a very helpful. I felt like it was a really, it was very interesting. I went to a lot of schools, but I never knew what was involved in deciding what should be in a school building and how many rooms and how much room is dedicated to the different tasks needed.
I know that one of the policy models that at least was at one point being considered is there are groups that come and build multiple schools at one time, right? They have templates for that, and then they manage the schools and take care of the maintenance and things like that for a period of time. And I know there's a group, I think they did this in Providence, and another group that's done it in Prince George's County in Maryland. I'd be curious if you all will interact with them as well.
We actually had a discussion about that. And
Okay.
Kind of felt that was not something that could work here.
Okay.
But that's kind of out of what we're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Or it's kind of not within the charge that we had. But I would also encourage people to look at this, the bill from the House.
Okay.
And I believe it's on page 78. I mean, the stuff that they were asking this group to do, which, meets 6 times a year, we were supposed to make a determination on where schools should go on or before December 1st, 26. Identify opportunities for construction renovation of school facilities that support consolidation of school government structures and improve access. Provide a full siting study for each identified school construction project that includes cost, location, and any other factor the board deems relevant. analyze compatibility of each identified school construction project with other projects, evaluate different statewide scenarios, and specifically consider how to achieve appropriate scale given research on school size, travel times, and how to achieve regional comprehensive high schools.
That's a lot of work.
That was
For a committee that's
Volunteer
once every
committee.
other month.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we felt. So we wanted to just make sure that didn't become law, because we kind of felt we got set up for failure last year when we were supposed to, give a report by December 15th on what to do with capital debt. That if they had forced school consolidation or school consolidation from that committee, and we really kind of felt like we were out in the breeze, because how do we know what the debt was going to look like until they decide, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? We weren't sure. It was made very difficult. So what we wound up doing, like I said before, was giving them some things to consider should they move forward with consolidation of buildings or consolidation of districts. And this one just kind of felt the same way. Without them identifying how many regional schools or where regional schools should be, I mean, we'd almost have to start off doing that first. And that, we saw how much time they spent last year with the mapping group and how far they got, so.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Can I ask Rich a quick question? Yeah. Rich, was part of the charge that your group's supposed to come out of with some standards around size of school based on population, et cetera? And why I ask is because of being on a school board that, worked with an architectural firm to look at schools, but there wasn't a lot of standardization or data behind what should be standard or could be standard based on population and needs.
Well, and that's, I don't know who you work with, but that's what this David does in Vermont, David Epstein, and there's another gentleman, Marty, that's on the committee. Our actual charge is we're supposed to review and give advice and help the Agency of Education with their proposals, because that was a little confusing. I wasn't sure if we were supposed to make proposals as the board or if we were just working with AOE. And there's also supposed to be a school construction division, school construction group within AOE.
Yeah.
And that hasn't, but they're not authorized, or they haven't authorized to fund those positions until another year or two. So it's kind of like horse before the cart or cart before the horse. So no, we have not done that, but we also felt that if we were supposed to, give advice, we wanted to know what, like you said, how much space should be funded, and how do you allow schools to have additional to fund locally versus through grants and bond issues with the state. How much extra space do you allow them? And it goes back to the equity and kind of back to the origins of the Brigham decision in Act 60. So that was one of the reasons we started with that presentation on for most local schools. And there's also, we were given a bunch of documents. One of them was Rhode Island. I know somebody mentioned Rhode Island earlier, maybe, Tammy. So we do have some documents that we were given from different states, standards different states have. I believe it was New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and I forget the other ones, but I can get people those documents that were supplied to if people have interest in that.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again for leading this committee. And it's actually, I will reflect that as you have been serving in this capacity as the chair of the committee, it's kind of nice to, you're really vesting.
You know your stuff.
You know your stuff. And I am grateful again for all of the chairs that are serving on committee chairs, but thank you.
Well, I'm glad I got you fooled. It's a really confusing and it's really interesting, doing a committee like this. And one of the things is, we talked about the committee was appointed by most of the members except for me were appointed by the legislators. And then one of the things I forgot we discussed was conflict of interest, because as the as a board chair and an SU chair, with those hats on, do I have a conflict when I'm making recommendations? Should I just say that the only school should, if we were to make we were to state that, maybe only schools in Windham County should get any money or any funds, and then that way it opens us up. And, with some members, different people that were appointed by legislature, are business managers, facility managers, people that design schools, are there conflicts there? So we, and because our staffing and legal and all our assistance is supposed to come from AOE, we did get, Emily helped us and sent us some broad information on conflict, and we did spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes discussing that at the last meeting also. I didn't mention that, and I didn't think that was as important, but now that you bring that up, it is, it's really amazing in Vermont. So many people wear so many different hats because we are such a small state. It's almost everybody in the world seems to have a conflict, or everybody on the committee could be perceived to have had a conflict.
Well, yeah, and that actually, similar issue arose in the Legislative Review Committee. So I'm just going to forecast. We had talked to Sarah, and not saying that there are conflicts, but I think it's really helpful to understand, what the standards are. So we had asked Sarah if she could put together a little presentation for the board at our May meeting. So just tell you now that's going to be on the agenda. But it's funny that this is kind of coming up in different areas, because you're right, it's a small state and we all wear a bunch of different hats.
Yeah, I want, how many legislators, are members of school districts, and when they do appropriations or pass laws, it's real. And I know their conflict of interest is different than ours in voting and stuff, but it's everybody, it's people are always willing to help, and those that help seem to really sometimes can run into some issues.
Well, thank you. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it to Tammy for an update from the Student Performance Standards Committee.
Thanks. Student Performance Standards Committee met last evening, and Caleb, Mohammed, Tom, and myself. We are kicking off our work on thinking through the new graduation standards for the state. To kick off that discussion, we had two sort of groups come in to give us perspectives from the field as a starting point on the Vermont Superintendents Association and the Vermont Principals Association. We did also invite the School Boards Association and VISA. Neither of them were available last night, but we will be hearing from them at some point. Very appreciative to Chelsea and Mike. I think they did a great job helping us identify real boots on the ground considerations for us. Broadly, I think there are a couple things bubbling up. One is that, over the last 10 to 15 years, the state's invested a lot of interest and effort in a paradigm shift away toward proficiency-based education, which is really sort of where the field in general is going. And we've heard pretty consistently that the graduation standards need to be aligned with that. We don't want to go back. And I'm not implying that they are that's what the agency has proposed, but that's going to be a consideration. Both VSA and VPA identified some other implementation concerns that we'll be taking up. Our next steps, we're going to meet just as a committee. We're going to be looking for a time here in the next week or so. I think we're going to have to get on a 2-time-a-month cadence. We got a lot of work to do. Sorry, Tess, we're going to do some work. But I think the committee, having heard that input and had some time to sit with the standards, we're going to come together just as a group to identify those key issues and pinch points where we really want to dig in and what we think the top priorities are, and take on some smaller topics and then return to the big picture. It's a big thing, and so sometimes making the issues smaller to help sort of understand and create some priorities is where we're going to start. So we're meeting again here probably in 2 weeks and moving to a cadence of meeting twice a month going forward. So Caleb, Mohammed, Tom, anything you wanted to add?
No, that was great. We have a lot of work to do, so.
Yeah,
That was the takeaway last night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I sent an email, which Tammy knows, to my school leaders, whether that be department chairs or art teachers, whoever, like all the major influences in each field, whether it's our ag department or whatever. I've heard a couple responses from them because I sent them the chart of the multiple recommendations. And I said, well, you know, I told Tammy, the person that actually showed me this opportunity used to work a lot with the agency as a public input type of situation. And she said that hasn't really been felt as much in the past 5 to 7 years. So I included in my email that I've heard that this bridge hasn't been as accessible recently. So as a way to bridge this gap, I want to know what you guys are thinking. Like, what do you think of this?
I think that this process, I think the Standards Committee, as we sort of are thoughtful about this work over the next 6 months, are going to be talking to a lot of people and getting a lot of input. Again, our goal is to have recommendations back to the board in October, November, with the goal of having a vote on this in December. Why that timeline? Because there's some pressure coming in from the federal government around sort of their concerns around our graduation standards. The other thing is and we heard this again last night, the field is really needing some guidance on this. The graduation standards have far-reaching impact for curriculum and instruction and staffing and budgeting and things along those lines. And if you think about a graduation cohort going out 4 years, and we're under a lot of pressure to get things settled so that schools and districts can make some decisions. The other thing that came up is the importance of the class size minimums being sort of going right along with this. These two things are going to have to go hand in glove, right? Because they work together, and so it's going to be really important to keep those two things on the same timeline. I will say...
Tell me why. Just explain that a little bit more.
Because
connection.
lots of these upper level classes are we're going to need to think really carefully about what we specify as, if we go to a course model or credit model, which may not happen, but if it does, those particular classes, we need to think about what that looks like in terms of class size minimums, particularly in small schools. We can't be mandating classes that are going to have automatically you're never going to be able to meet attendance requirements. So let's say if you mandate calculus, I'm not saying we're mandating calculus, but like in a small school district, you might only have two students eligible for that, and they could tripwire these things. So I think those two things, we just have to be thoughtful about how we set up our policy framework around minimums. And I know you couldn't attend yesterday. We had a pretty good discussion on that with the agency yesterday, and sort of where that fits with the DQS and the larger accountability framework. And is it going to be on class size minimums? For example, one class that sends a kid, right, that sends it to school, or just makes it the school non-compliant, and how does that fit into our existing framework for thinking about accountability that we have in the DQS, and how do we fit these things that are going to be called in as a part of the EQS and make that work with the DQS? And because we have two different frameworks going on, there's a lot of moving pieces that all have to line up in order for this to be coherent. But the real big thing is that the timeline for these needs to be consistent with one another, because when school boards have to make decisions about this new graduation standards and the curricular implications for those, they also need to be having sort of the guidance around class size minimums at the same time, so they can make these decisions once and for all. And right, because the risk is graduation requirements come in class size, and you've already made decisions here, and now you have to reopen and redo the whole thing again. And both these sets of standards have real implications for staffing, facilities, things along those lines.
So are you saying, Mask, that that a class size could impact what the graduation requirement is?
The graduation requirements could, right? There could be a situation where if we were to create a graduation requirement, and I'm just going to make it up, underwater basket weaving, and only 3 kids in the school take underwater basket weaving, yet it's a graduation requirement, and you can never get to a class size above that. That has implications for their viability for funding over here in other ways, right? And so we've got to think about these things.
Maybe it's a deeper conversation for all of us. It would worry me that if all of a sudden we're saying class sizes have to be X, Y, and Z, this committee would then say we may or may not propose a graduation requirement depending on what the class sizes are. Or are you not saying that?
I didn't say that at
Okay,
all. What
good,
I said
good.
was is that if we are to have a coherent policy framework that's implementable, transparent, and predictable for school districts in this state, then those two things, we need to make sure that we have timing, and those two things are aligned with one another, so there are no unintended consequences, and that the overarching policy framework is implementable, predictable, and transparent.
Yeah, no, I get that part. But when you started that they sort of influence each other,
I said they need to work. I said they need to work, that these two things need to work together. I didn't say they influence one another.
So there's no, so that you, in terms of our work in this committee, you're not seeing that if we set a certain minimum.
Well, the
it's
minimums are
going
set in
to-
statute.
No, but I mean, if we
Right.
make any changes at all, it's in some way going to impact how you all decide what a graduation requirement is. Is there any kind of connection like that?
I don't know of one yet,
Okay,
but I
good.
do
Okay,
think,
I just wanted to make sure.
that since the EQS is pulling in the graduation standards and a whole lot of other things, right? And we have the DQS over here that has
Yeah.
a set, right, that has an
Completely. I just wanna make
accountability
sure there's
framework. That those two, and part of the accountability framework in the DQS is curriculum and instruction, right? We got to make sure all these things are working together.
Completely. I just, when you initially were chatting, it just sounded like there was something that this committee could decide that would then impact whether or not certain graduation requirements are put forward. And I'm hearing, no, that wouldn't be. Like if we say, oh gosh, I mean, whatever we might decide. But I'm
No,
saying Tom
I actually think the consideration is that if we are serious about implementability, then we have to take into account scale and implementability and what that looks like.
Yeah,
right?
but, okay, I think I've got the answer.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about timing?
Yeah.
Because what I heard from the AOE was they were looking for us to do the graduation requirements sooner than later when you add in budgetary constraints. Because if we wait till December, we're going to have school districts that are not able to create their budgets, their budgets are long.
We heard from the field that there's a pressure to certainly get the graduation requirements done by next fall so they can start to take them into account, right, for that planning cycle. We had heard from the agency that there's also pressure from the U.S. Department of Education to have these ironed out no later than December. So we've got both those things going on at the same time. This is not rule, these are standards. This does not have to go through the ICAR, LCAR process. So when we vote on the standards, then they're the standards, right? So unlike regulation, it doesn't fold into another process that then takes another 8 months.
Right, are you shooting for, as a committee though, a date such as
October,
September?
November.
So that,
Yeah.
because school districts
Yeah.
are building their budgets.
Yeah.
If we waited till December, I think it would be really problematic for school
I
districts.
think the challenge is that, I think we have two challenges. Well, I think the goal is to have a vote on the final standards no later than December. I think what we are recognizing is the committee will likely come to the board twice, right? We'll bring our initial recommendations. There will be board discussions as how it went with the EQS. There may be additional things get referred back to the committee to attend to, and then it comes back up to the board again for another vote. I'm not anticipating that we vote on them the first time you see them, because I think that like we're having right now, there'll be a big, you'll need to understand what they are, there'll be a conversation around it. So I think the goal, again, is to try to have something for the board to consider in October for the first time with a vote by December. But
I'm just concerned about that timeline. That
I think
it
we're
really
all
does
concerned
impact-
about the timeline.
It
but
impacts districts, because
It's huge.
districts get their budget already done
I know.
long before that.
I know. Well, same thing with class size, right? You know, I think we all on the committee recognize already that this is a huge volume of work to do. And we did hear from Mike McRaith last night is that if we can't really land the plane on this well, it's one thing, we got to do it well, right? But if we can't do it well by October, then we need to have a conversation about pushing the implementation timeline out for a year. So for exactly the reasons you talked about. So I think we're well aware of that as a committee, but I think the reality is there's a lot of work to do. And let me also say, there's a lot of work to do, not because the agency didn't give us a good starting point to work with. It's just, this is a big task. Right? And what we had before us, I think Erin and her team did a great job of getting us kicked off on that.
I'm going to maybe pause here unless there are any final questions for Tammy or the committee. Let's pause the committee updates because it looks like we have people joining us to provide a presentation. Oh, great, yeah. This is a presentation from the Burlington School District. And I know if you're planning to speak, it's helpful if you can come up to those tables with the microphones, just so that people who are listening remotely can hear you.
I'm going to start us off, and then team of students and staff introduce themselves. And first and foremost, I'm Sparks. I am the Director of Equity for the Burlington School District, and welcome to the district. Glad to have you all.
Thank
Glad you guys could see some of our school and hopefully get an opportunity to see more of the district. So one of the things that the district has done over the past several years is really try to embolden and empower students' participation, student voice. And one of the things we have really tried to push away from was student voice. And what does that actually mean? Because I'm sure most school districts talk about student voice. So students use their voice all day long, every day in schools. But what we're talking about are actual authentic student partnerships and really allowing students to help us define and shape what our district looks like. We as adults spend a lot of time in the buildings watching students, writing policies, procedures, and so on and so forth. But the thing that we don't spend enough time doing is actually having students at the table as partners and equals. So I think when we really look at the face of education, especially in a state like Vermont, we have an opportunity of really shifting what schools look like. When we think about student voice, student empowerment, student participation, I'm a firm believer that students should be at the table with us as decision makers. Some folks say students are too young. I do not believe that. If we as educators are training them how to participate in a manner that is conducive to what we're trying to accomplish for student learning, I believe students can reshape what education looks like in Vermont. So one of the things that we have done, the district started a program called the Summer Racial Justice Academy. And through that program, what we wanted to accomplish was actually letting students look at our policies, procedures, what we're doing, and really critique what we're doing. The things that we're not doing, the things that we should be doing better on. And the students over the past 5 years, this summer will be year 6, they continually gave the district, the superintendent, the school board, myself, and my department a list of things that we need to change to make education better for them and the quality of education and their educational experiences better. So that's just one of the pieces of actually listening to students, hearing students, and giving students the opportunity to really work with us as partners. Not the adults making decisions and then say, let's bring students in so we can tell them what we've done. That is not a partnership. The other thing, as we think about students and student participation, students have done a lot of work as we think about hazing, harassment, bullying, meaning they have done presentations to their peers, to adults, to teachers, to parents. As we think about students taking action, we have also had our students involved in youth participatory action research, where students are actually looking at data, looking at what's not working in the district, and giving us ideas on what we need to change and to improve. So one of the things that I would employ you to consider is really hearing students, and as you think about the work that you all do, which I'm grateful for, is to really hear from these students and from Autumn Bangora, who has been working with the students in the leadership capacity and really supporting their work in and out of school. How do we take what you're hearing back to Montpelier and back to the Agency of Education to continue to improve the quality of education and educational services for our students and their families? Thank you. I would invite the students and Autumn to come back and introduce yourselves, please.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. We need more chairs.
So, hello everyone. I'm Autumn Bangura. My title is Equity Instructional Leader. Sparks is my supervisor, and I think of myself as working for them, the students. I work for them. They're my better supervisors, bosses. I am the director of the Racial Justice Academy, and I teach a Hunt YPAR class, which Sparks mentioned, is Youth-Led Participatory Action Research. And I like to highlight student empowerment and bring students to the table as equal partners. So I'm not going to blah, 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 but I'm just going to prompt them with questions. They had short notice, just so you know, so they're going to be speaking off the top of their cup. Normally, when we get this kind of thing, we like to have a prep meeting beforehand, and we have not had that. I sent them an email with some prompts this morning, right? So, but they're wonderful, and they're representing different groups, too, so I'm psyched that we have representation from Edmonds Middle School, Hunt Middle School, and Burlington High School here today. So, start out by just sharing your name and your school, your pronouns if you wish, your grade, and share what you're involved in terms of youth leadership. We want to start with Robertson.
Hi, I'm Robertson. I'm an 8th grade YPAR, and I'm doing a project on improving the engagement of students in the curriculum.
Hi, I'm Angel. I'm in YPAR and SRJA, and in YPAR, I'm focusing on decreasing the amount of student racism that happens.
My name is Chrissy.
Can you pull the mic closer to you? They ask us to do it all the time.
My name is Chrissy. I'm an 8th grader at HMS, and I've done SRJA for 2 years, and last year I worked on student engagement in class.
Hi, I'm Kiki. I'm a junior at Burlington High School, and I do the technical center here for education, training, and leadership. And I've been doing SRJA for, I think, 4 years. And I'm also in Equity Collab. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Amina, and I go to Edmonds Middle School, and I'm involved in YPAR, and our project this year is BIPOC teacher hiring and retaining in the school district.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I'm in YPAR at Edmonds Middle School, and I'm working with Amina. And our project is BIPOC teacher hiring and retention.
My name's Esther. I'm a senior at Burlington High School. I also did the technical program last year, and I am the Office of Equity intern right now for the past 2 years now. And I've been doing equity work since 8th grade. I started with YPAR, then I did SRJ, and now I'm in a lot of groups, and then also working with the office.
Awesome. So before I ask the next question, when you hear SRJA, that stands for Summer Racial Justice Academy. We always use acronym BUST in the world of education. That's, I'm sure you've far now. Equity Collaborative, which Kiki mentioned, is a group of 2 building representatives from each school that come together with about 6 youth and work on furthering the recommendations of the Summer Racial Justice Academy. And then we also have a PSA team that I think Christy is a member of, only over here, that creates PSAs, public service announcement videos, to share with other students to counteract HHB.
So may I ask, so everybody's on a committee that's advising and making policy, basically?
Basically.
That's great. That's great.
So the next prompt, and we don't always have to go Robertson like that, we can start with whoever feels called to it, is can you share a specific example of a time that you took the lead on an issue, either through YPAR or SRJA or Equity Collab or PSA or any of these different, or peer mediation, anything that you have done?
I'll go. Can we just elaborate on my project?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been working since last year in 7th grade on improving the engagement of students in school. And So really all I've been doing is coding data. I'm a group of one, so it takes a long time. And I found that just because we're kind of on the topic of partnering with adults, I found that it's really hard to get the data through because you can send it to the adults and they can look at it, but there's of course no guarantee that they're going to make change on it. So I think it'd be really good to have an adult on your team from the start so that you know that you can have your work benefit someone.
Makes sense.
I have a question. So, when you say engagement, do you mean engagement in activism, engagement in class? What type of engagement?
In their classwork.
I think for me, taking a lead has been a thing that I always do in the classroom. I've been a natural born leader. And so something that I took a lead in 8th grade was making a teacher rubric, and that we use in the district now, and have had trouble since 8th grade, but we made a responsive rubric about culture in the classroom, about how teachers should have relationship with students. And so that's something that we did in YPAR, and it was really hard because we never made a teacher rubric, but we're just students, and so our voice really matters, and so that's something I took a lead on.
Well, we are a group of 2 people, so it's really easy to like work together, and like we always have the same thought compared to like maybe bigger groups where like not everything is being communicated.
Yeah, all of our ideas are shared with each other, so that's
so it's really, I can't say like that like one of us like takes lead more than the other, because like we both like really like work well together, and we make sure to communicate, and we've made lots of progress. We're the newest YPAR group at Edmonds, but we started this year, and a lot of the groups started last year, but we've been working really hard to catch up to the other groups, and we've been reaching out to a lot of adults in power, so, and we've been interviewing a lot of adults in the school district as well.
Something I've been taking a lead on is, well, this year I joined the Equity Collab, and it's like a group of adults and a group of students that come together and like share ideas of stuff of how we can make the Burlington school like district like better. And one thing we've been talking about is the connection with students and teachers, and overall like the grading system and stuff. And I feel like just being a student, bringing their voice and connecting with like adults and hearing their perspective as well has made a change in our district. And also with the SRJ program, I'm a peer like leader, so I help I want to say, like, in a way, for my eyes, I see it like teaching other students about justice and stuff, and like connecting with students. So getting that student-to-student point of view has also, I feel like, made an impact and like just more effective for students.
From my experience at SRJA last year, during my capstone, which was youth organizing, I got to collect data and make a whole slideshow about engagement in class and how it's like neurological, it could also be like social, and how things can just get away or like get in the way of students' attention spans in class. And I got to hear the voices of students and adults and teachers alike, and I took the lead on putting it all together into a slideshow.
Last time at SRJA, I was in the consultancy capstone, and it was where people had came to our capstone to like ask us for help on their problems that like were related to racism, like social justice and stuff. And we talked to people from like Howard Center, Richard Kemp, and we even talked to Sparks. And what I gained from that was like, I got to like hear things, like I got to hear their problem and like help them solve it, which I found was interesting. I think I took a lead on that part, guys. Sorry.
So the next one is, can you describe ways you've partnered with adults that felt meaningful and what made those partnerships effective?
Well, kind of like I said earlier, like in the equity collab, we like work with adults, so just like hearing their perspective, but also being able to share our perspective one-on-one with them has like made it effective. And I just feel like them being able to see it from our perspective and us being able to see it from their perspective and trying to come with like a basic ground of like what we should do in that matter is something that's just been effective.
I think for me and Andrea, one partnership that really felt meaningful for us was with a woman named Maria Davies. I think she works with the Office of Equity, and she has been like helping us get every step done. Like without her, I don't think we would be as far as we've gotten.
Yeah, she does a lot for us. Like, she helps us set up our interviews, and she gives us feedback on our work. She's even like helped us write our emails sometimes, and it's just really nice knowing that. Like, it's really nice having someone, like, it's really nice that she has our back and she's helping us with our project.
And she respects us like as equals and doesn't like underestimate our genius in what we're trying to do. Sorry, I couldn't find a different word.
No, you're a genius.
Exactly. Great word.
Like I said earlier, at SRJA, we talk to adults a lot, and it's like mostly like student-led, but there are adults who come and like help. But these adults, like Autumn here, they would come and they would just like listen to our problems and help us find solutions and just help us get through it and try to create change.
To add on to that is, like, as a leader of SRJ, they were there for like supporting us and guiding us, but they let us run it, which was good, and it was just also good to have their like support there if we like needed guidance.
I agree with both of them on that. At my time at SRJA, I noticed that it was mostly like the students who were like controlling it, meanwhile like the adults were there to help and like set us on the right track. And I think our partnership with them went really great because the entire time we had like lots of good communication with them, which is a good thing.
Yeah, kind of like what everyone else said. Almost all of the YPAR groups have some kind of liaison in the staff, but it's really just people in the building. Like, we have an English learners group that's focusing on like giving the students who can't speak English, or at least haven't gotten there yet, giving them voice. And so that's really good, is that we have people in the building, because it's easier to solve problems that way, but we can't solve bigger problems without help from the outside. So.
I think for me, I work with Autumn every day, and it's like a constant communication. And so having that partnership, I've known her since I was about like 3 years old. And so working with her since 8th grade and like seeing our progress in our relationship, it's really unhelpful to have someone who is understanding of situations that you have at home and then always like doing school, but also wanting for you to do this work because it's not easy at all. And so having that partnership with Autumn has been really nice. She's always been a listening ear, and she like respects like who I am as a person, and sometimes I might not want to do it, and that's like not easy for a lot of adults to hear. And we also have boundaries that we set together, and so that's really easy to not set each other's boundaries. And we have this rubric that we have, it's called the do's and don'ts of youth-adult in partnership. And some of the don'ts and do's are really help us in our relationship, and that's something that I helped create in 8th grade. Yeah.
Thanks. So the last prompt, and then if you have questions, is based on your experiences, what is one thing that you want to tell these education leaders to prioritize in moving forward?
I just want to say that I feel like there should be more opportunities, like not even just in Burlington, but also over Vermont for like youth leadership. I hear about some of it, but I feel like I don't hear about it enough. And I feel like it's very important to students and just like the community in Vermont in general. And so I feel like there should be more opportunities for that and resources for like students to go and have that opportunity. And yeah.
Like Kiki said, I feel like there should be more opportunities to students like have a voice, and I feel like it's better for like people our age to hear from people that are our age, because I feel like it'll stick better hearing it from someone who is your own age instead of just an adult talking at you.
Also, to add on to that, I feel like there are a lot of adults that do look at us like that we're just young and we don't know what we're talking about, but like student-to-student connection is something that's really important, and the only thing to get to like another student is like it's mainly by having someone else that they can really connect to and stuff. So I feel like there should just be more student voices so that students like feel that connection and like feel more like connected in their community.
I think for me, it's easy to say that students are at the table, and it's easy to have them at the table, but don't have them as like a poster person and tell them what to say. Because I've had that experience where there's adults just have it out for me, but they just want a student to be there just to say that they're there. But if they're not actually having voice and implementing regulations and stuff, it's not really having a student voice. It's just having them there just to be there.
We agree with what Chrissy said. We also believe that everything is more meaningful when like you hear it from someone that you can relate to, which is like our project in YPAR right now. We believe that it would make a difference for students to have more teachers that look like them, instead of like never like going through all of like your school without ever having a teacher who's like the same race as you or can relate to the same experiences as you. Same as like student to student like learning. I feel like I said before, everything feels more meaningful when you can relate to the person saying it.
Yeah, and we have to think about how students, we are like the leaders of tomorrow. We'll be like at the head of the table once the adults are like retired from their jobs. So if we start out now, then we can work together to have a better future.
I think the most important thing that the adults need to hear is that, well, there's this philosophy, I guess, that our YPAR teacher, Mr. Demink, taught us about the idea of allies versus co-conspirators, where like allies have read the books and they know all about the issues at hand, but when it's time to actually make change, they're not there to help. And that's who co-conspirators are. They're the ones who have read the books and are ready to help. And I think that's what we need the adults to be. Because all of them want to help, and all of them, well, some of them might know how to help, but we need them to really, really do it.
I agree with Chrissy that students need to like hear things from other students, like that student voice is important because when students hear from other students, they're like more likely going to like listen and they'll like be able to relate with the student. And also just like hearing, like as a student myself, when I see other students like up there in front of crowds of people like talking about important like topics, it's just like wow, like that's inspiring. And I think that every student, like that's a good thing for like students to see other students doing that because that inspires them.
I also just want to add that like students seeing other students like have a voice and speak up inspires other students to also want to speak up, which I think is really important. And a lot of adults question like, oh, well, I have this program and like no one wants to join. But it's like if you're leading in, you're not letting students actually have the voice, there's not going to be like many other students that want to like take that risk. So if there's a student there and actually having a chance to share their voices, there will be other students wanting to do the same.
I just wanted to add that, I don't know if it was mentioned, but at Burlington School District, we firmly believe in compensating students for their participation in this work. It takes a lot of emotional labor. It's additional to their workloads, their sports commitments, and everything that they do, all the amazing stuff they do. So from the very beginning, we found grant funding for Racial Justice Academy, and we're starting to figure out how to put it into our budget, thanks to the belief that the students really, I think it shows a lot of respect for them. As I call them consultants at the Racial Justice Academy, because they are consulting on how to improve our school systems. And also just thinking about like community service and flexible pathways and other ways that they can be honored for the work that they bring forward when they're offering leadership to us. So we can open it up for questions now.
First of all, I just want to thank you all, especially for coming on short notice. You all, one of the nice things is when you know what you're doing, it's easy to talk about it. So that was really a joy for me to hear the contributions that you're making. So two things. One is, I announced this earlier, but I will say this to each of you. We have student members on the board that non-voting in the first year that they serve on the board and then voting the second year, but fully participate in all of our meetings, and it's actually really helpful to have that perspective. So you do have to be in high school, I will say that, but if you're not in high school yet, keep that in the back of your head. And if you are in high school, Caleb will be leaving us in June, and so we will be looking for someone to take over for another 2-year position. So I would encourage, you guys are all engaged, and this is another way to really make a powerful contribution to education in Vermont. So just wanted to let you all know that. We'd love to have you apply. And then the second thing is, as I listen to each one of you, I'm just curious, with the contributions that you've made and the challenges that you've faced, is there anything in particular as you reflect back on this that you're really especially proud of?
I think for me, coming as like the oldest out of all of these kids, I'm a senior and I'm looking back at my time as just a freshman and in 8th grade. I think I started this work in 6th grade, and so just seeing how I've grown. I used to be very energetic and I used to have a big mouth and I kind of talked bad to my teachers, but seeing that how they respect me now and they see me as a leader and they ask me to do a lot of things. Sometimes I get a little overloaded, but it's nice to have teachers want me to help them to become better, because it just shows that you can learn from any age. And so something that I've done in the school district that I've looked back on is the Sankofa project. We started that last year, but even though it was a year ago, I feel like I've grown so much with that project. And basically the project is, we have these events just celebrating Black joy throughout throughout the whole year. And so it's just been an amazing project to work with teachers that I haven't seen in so long. Like some of the teachers are here at Edmonds and I don't get to see them, but getting to work with my other teachers is really fun. And like just seeing community members come and visit and watch us, and the Slam Poetry Project has been really nice. And just watching Autumn even drum with her Jay Kalu, which has been really nice. So I think that's like a nice project that I've started, and it's really helped. And then just as recently we started the Reading to End Racism, and I've been reading to all the younger elementary classrooms just talking about race. And I went today and I was a little tired, and so it's just been fun to go back to like my stomping grounds and like seeing all my old classrooms and all my old teachers and reading to their kids and talking about hard subjects but making it child safe. So yeah.
I'm really proud of just the things I've learned from Mr. Domingue, who teaches us in YPAR. And I feel like I've just learned so much about how I can code data and analyze it and all that. And I feel like, well, it took me the first 3 quarters of the year to finish up analyzing the survey data that I had. And I feel like now I could do it in like 1 day with the skills I have now.
I have a question. The work that you've done sounds amazing. You've found your voice. Do you have examples outside of school where this has really helped you to have more confidence or be more empowered?
Well, my dad is a poet, and I am also a poet. And being able to, do public speaking and just stand in front of audiences, and having people hear my voice is just a lot easier now that I've had practice.
Yeah, to add on to that, there's been a lot of opportunities throughout my high school years, and I feel like from starting in these organizations and programs, it has helped me a lot to just jump right into it and be yeah, I do it outside of school, and I feel like that's something that's
I also have a question. So I heard the sentiment that just because you put all this data together and you do all this hard work, it doesn't mean that you're going to be heard necessarily, or that maybe you will be heard, but there won't be any action guaranteed. Do you guys feel individually, not necessarily as a group or as a group, that your voice and your actions and your effort is valued and heard?
Personally, I feel like it's definitely heard. There's so many of the adults we talk to, they want to make change, and they see where they want to go, but not how to get there. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Never mind. Sorry.
Well, kind of like I said earlier, me personally, I feel that my voice is heard, especially when we've been working, like I said before, we've been working with Maria Davies, and she definitely values every single word that we say, and she actually thinks about the things that she thinks about what we tell her before just giving an answer or just assuming that we don't know what we're talking about. She, like Amina said as well, she treats us like equals, and she doesn't, she listens to everything that we have to say, and I really feel heard, and I like working with all of the adults in my YPAR.
I think that a lot of adults, a lot of the adults that I work with are surprised by what I know about what's going on in our world right now and what I want to do to fix it. And so I don't really take no for an answer. I kind of have to make them hear me.
Question. Thank you all for being here, and I can tell, and I know for sure you are intense for the adults you work with directly, because I myself have worked with them for many years. My question for you would be, when you say, I want my voice to be heard, what does that mean to you? Yeah, I'm going to give an example. When I say A, you hear the A, right? But what does that A mean to you? To me, that's where I want my voice or anybody's voice to be heard. Not just about what is coming out of your mouth, but really understanding the point you're making and the point that you need to be executed. Whether it be you with the adults together, to do that, to do the work together. But to me, when I hear my voice or anybody's voice to be heard, it's it needs a lot. There is a lot in it. There is a lot in it. I'm not sure how you're understanding it, but that's how I'm taking it. You may go on stage and speak up about something that is not working well for you. Here's, I'm going to give you an example. You go to the lunchroom in the cafeteria. Some students would say, hey, I don't want to eat this, or I don't eat this. Say it politely, because I only eat halal, as an example. So that student claiming to want to eat halal, they say what they want. They say what they need. To me, but how about the outcome? How about the reaction of the person to whom they are talking to or speaking with, and what action that adult would be taking in the reaction to the student demand?
I think you're talking about an active listener versus a passive listener. A lot of people that I've talked to sometimes are passive, like they just listen and they don't do anything. So like an active listener is willing to understand where you're coming from and understanding your story, which is very interesting, because not for a long time I didn't really see where people are coming from, but everyone has their own story, so you have to understand where they're coming from first, and then become an active listener by listening to what they're saying and then putting it into action.
That one. Thank you.
What I mean by I want my voice to be heard, what I mean by that is that I want people to be able to listen to me, but also take action or try to find ways to make it happen. And I want to actually start seeing it other places instead of it just being said and nothing being done.
My interpretation of that is when it is my opinions or my voice, not just going in one ear and going out the other, but you giving feedback, or actually showing that you understand what I'm saying, and then actually making a change, or just saying something, not just keeping that opinion that you already had, or actually trying to compromise, or at least thinking about what I said instead of just being stuck on one idea.
I think for me, engaging in the conversation, both of us putting in our own ideas, I don't want to just be talking to a wall. I want the other person to react to what I'm saying and say their own feelings about it, so I know that they're understanding my point.
Those are wonderful responses. I'm going to limit it to that so my colleagues can ask few more questions if anyone has any questions or comments. But thank you for those responses. I appreciate it.
I have a question. I'm Tammy, by the way. What recommendations would you have for students in other schools who want to start programs like this or advocate for a program like this in their school? Because what you do and what's going on here doesn't happen everywhere. So it seems like that's the kind of thing that we should be getting the word around to other students in other places. What would you tell them? What would you say would be the most important? Do they need to find an adult first? What should they ask for? What would the request be that they would need to make? Like, how do you help them understand what you've learned so that they can get programs like this started elsewhere?
I would personally find people who like share my interests, whether that be like friends or like family, and then I would go find a teacher that like sees through my eyes sort of, and then just start from there.
Okay.
If like students want to start and they hear about it from like a different program, maybe they could reach out to that program for advice on how to get started, and then try looking for an adult. But if an adult's not out there, like make a community or like connection of their own with students that share the same.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Have students from other schools ever reached out to you all about your program and wanting to do what you're doing?
Last year, me and a friend of mine went to Seattle to go present a workshop about what's going on in the district, and so we've had some teachers from that workshop that we did reach out for us, so we gave them the rubric that I talked about before, and we talked about peer mediation, and so they said that they would start that in their school. So they kind of led by example, but that's because we went to them first.
That's really cool.
Marlborough School asked for a virtual peer mediation workshop because they're 3 hours away. Hillier High School, the students visit there twice, and then Hobie Leadership Seminar.
Okay.
They presented last spring there as well.
I think you should take the show on the road. Go visit all the schools and tell them about it.
And give them credit for it.
Oh, absolutely. No. I said, I think they, I meant they. They don't need us. Other advice to students, to students elsewhere?
Honestly, my biggest advice to students is don't be shy, speak up. Like if you believe in something and you value something, try your best to get your voice out there.
I also think that sometimes you don't even have to do it for the credit. Do it for me, I do it for like the younger generation, just doing it for the people. Sometimes I don't get credit, sometimes I do. And so just doing it for the people that are coming after you, because you don't want to have them to have the same experiences you've had. And so that's what motivates me. And so even if you're not doing it for yourself, you want it to be better for the other people who are coming behind you.
Great. Thank you all. This was a really great presentation. It was just nice to hear about the work that you're doing. And to Tammy's point, it would be great to have more groups like you throughout the state, because it really seems impactful. Thank you.
Thank you all. And apply for the positions on the state board, please.
Yes.
We would love to have you. We do cool things.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Don't overpromise.
That's right.
Don't overpromise.
Oh, we do cool things. We do hard things, but they're cool. Come on, graduation standards. I mean, how much fun?
Some things are cooler than others.
All right, so
I think it's cool.
I'm going to bring us back. I do know, like, I just had to take a small break. If anyone needs to take a break, feel free to jump out and come back in. But I'm going to pick us back up with our committee updates. So I'm going to provide the update from the Legislative Review Committee. So Brian, Tammy, and I met on Monday. We had the same 4 legislators. We had Senator Bongart, Senator Cummings, Representative Conlon, and Representative Kornheiser join us. And one of the first things that the committee decided is when we first set this committee up, the committee is really only active during the legislative session, because that's what we're set up to do. But we had also sort of talked about meeting on the first and third Mondays of the month during the legislative session. We've decided that meeting once a month with these legislators who actually seem incredibly generous with their time and, you know, willing to come in and meet with us. But once a month seems like enough for them and probably enough for us. And then the other thing that we've really landed on is that the most helpful time to meet with them is on Monday before we have the State Board of Ed meeting on Wednesday, which again, thank you, Suzanne, for the quick turnaround. But it keeps that information fresh. So we did meet with them this past Monday. We'll be meeting with them again, I believe, on May 18th, if I'm remembering that correctly, the Monday before our monthly State Board of Ed meeting. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order in terms of who met with us when, but starting with Senator Cummings, she really did not have much of an update for us. She's the chair of Senate Finance and said that they're really waiting to get things from crossover. So her committee is working on things. They're not necessarily education related at this point. So not too much of a substantive update from her. Representative Kornheiser is the chair of House Ways and Means, and so House Ways and Means received H-955, which was the bill that was passed by House Ed. House Ed passed that out, I believe, last week. They sent it to House Ways and Means. House Ways and Means has been making some adjustments to it, and they're planning, I think, they voted it out, but it's going to a vote and then a second vote at the end of this week. So at that point, it will then go to the Senate Education Committee. And let me go back to Representative Conlon.
Sorry, Jennifer, what was that bill number again?
955. So that was the bill that was passed by House Ed. And that bill basically creates these overarching districts, but is looking at mergers on a voluntary basis. So kind of recreating the Act 46 process, which was school mergers, but the House version is completely voluntary. So that is what has passed and has gone over to House Ways and Means. They've provided some tweaks to it. And that will probably get voted out the end of this week and then get crossed over to Senate Ed.
So that's not the districts, right, though? It's the overarching, I can't remember
It's
what they call them, but.
ACE,
right.
ACEA. Or
Something collective where they'll actually do fines.
Yes, CSEA.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Senator Bongartz, of course, they're waiting to receive H-955 from the House. But in the meantime, they've been working on their version of a bill. And the difference is their bill is voluntary. It's encouraging voluntary mergers for the first 2 years. And then beyond that, it will start becoming mandatory. They are currently looking at the State Board of Ed as being the body, kind of akin to what happened during Act 46, where the State Board of Ed would be in charge of determining which school districts and supervisor districts and supervisor unions would be merged together. But in the meantime, there's a 2-year voluntary period where they are looking at providing funding support so that SUs and SDs can engage in studies to really think about what makes sense. And the idea is that if it's voluntary, people on the ground tend to know what's going to be a better fit for them than the State Board of Ed or legislators. And so it's really trying to encourage those voluntary mergers where they make sense. The other thing is Senator Bongartz mentioned that they're working on PCBs. So there was something in the House that is looking at completely repealing the PCB testing that was passed into law a few years ago. The Senate is also looking at that, but Seth was saying that they are probably not going to completely eliminate the PCB testing requirement, because his committee didn't feel like that was the right answer either. The issue with the PCB testing, if anyone doesn't know, is that there are PCBs, there's not necessarily money to remediate. And so it creates this problem where now you've identified PCBs in a school, but there's no money to remediate. So they're wrestling with how to solve that problem. The other thing that Senator Braungart's mentioned is they're working on chronic absenteeism. And one of the things that he pointed out is, well, there's two surprising data points here. One is that the rate of chronic absenteeism in the state is 25%, which was shockingly high. The other data point, which is probably similarly surprising, is that it's not just high school, but it begins in the lower grades. And so, as he pointed out, this ties directly into low test scores, because if you're not in a classroom, you're not learning the materials, you're not able to produce the desired results on the testing that occurs every year. So they're really trying to tackle that, but really focusing on earlier grades, because this is kind of where it all starts. What am I forgetting?
Yeah, that's really, I thought it was incredibly interesting and important, and it sounds like the agency initiated this.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, I'm wondering about absenteeism at St. John's when you were the head of school. Can you share a little bit about that, how you dealt with it? Do you mind if I?
No, it's
okay, thanks.
So it was not a huge issue because, remember, I had the wisdom to get out before COVID. But there was the solution, as you've heard, and the same here, and we've heard in other school visits, is communication with the families, and with sometimes the school going out of their way to either provide transportation or make a home visit to get to the root of why the absenteeism is happening. Just school-based policy and number of absences and that, while important, is not going to solve the problem. The solution was the communication with the family, figuring out the root cause. And I will say that just as a classroom teacher, which after I stepped down, I've been, the communication home when a student is absent makes a huge difference. And it's the relationship, unless there's something really seriously wrong, if it's a relational issue, reaching out to home makes all the difference.
Unfortunately, I missed that part of the committee meeting. With that 25% number, that's over all grades, correct? That's the average?
I believe so.
Okay.
So, yeah.
He didn't disaggregate it. It would be
No.
interesting to see that number disaggregated, and particularly at the secondary level when transportation is no longer provided, and in districts that are non-operating districts where transportation is on the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that is something for the board to understand, particularly since we make decisions around that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. He did seem particularly concerned with the younger grades. Because he kept talking about, kids are arriving in high school and they've missed so much school that they're not ready to roll. So, yeah, it would be interesting to see that. Do you either say something about absenteeism?
I was just going to actually say that I would request, if you're looking more into chronic absenteeism, to look toward Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not well diverse or well driven into what they've done specifically.
Transportation.
But they were notoriously, Deep South states traditionally are notoriously not great in education rankings, and they've risen to top 20 in the nation. And one of their major things was cracking down on chronic absenteeism. So I would highly suggest looking into whatever they've done, which, as Tammy said, transportation was a big aspect of that. So yeah, that would be my request.
But at your school, do you have a sense, is it?
I think it's definitely a mixed bag.
Okay.
Definitely a mixed bag. I definitely don't see it as much in my classes, but I think there definitely is a presence of it, for sure. Like, you hear about people having a ton of absences all the time. like even I have like 17 in like this year, which
17 days of school.
yeah,
Which would make
granted,
him,
it's
which would
majority
take,
illness,
right,
but-
that would take you over
Yeah.
the 15, right?
Yeah.
But-
I'm going to speak from experience.
Yeah, may I just, I had to ask Brianna, do you want to just answers first? Yeah, sorry. Thanks.
Yeah, so personally at my school, I feel like it's more actually like the younger classes and then like the senior class. So like really in between, not as much, because I think it's like the starting off, like it's like a new building, a new environment, you're more nervous, you're less apt to like want to go. And then honestly with seniors, I think it's more like you're done, you've done your time, like you just want to get out. So I feel like that, but like otherwise, like I know juniors, like I know they show up a lot because I feel like if you miss a day, you're more,
You're good.
yeah, you're kind of screwed because like you're gonna have to catch up all on that homework. But I also think like the thing that surrounds like the absence is like also like parent involvement too, because I know like kind of like also going into like transportation, like if your parent can't give you transportation, you really can't get to school.
Mohammed?
Yeah, I have worked a lot in this domain, and lately, I have to say, I possibly have had some nightmares about this, which led me to write a small paragraph, just shared it with my colleagues to distribute to folks they supervise around this. I understand sometimes we don't ask, possibly we don't ask the right questions, and or there is a fear to go into deep details in a student's household, which we should not fear to remedy a lot about education, to be honest. What I learned is that some parents out there may come to your room or by the door to your room to tell you good night at the time they think you should go to bed. But imagine this is a teenager, you left them in their room, they have a PS5, you name it, whatsoever that is, a flat screen and a cell phone, the internet is on, you say good night. Of course it's going to be a good night for them, because that's exactly what they wanted. Let's be honest, if I am a teen, I was at my age when I was a teen, I didn't have this, but if I had the opportunity, obviously I would be on it. At my house, I still every night, block the internet for anyone who should go to bed at 9 o'clock. I block the internet to anyone who should go to bed at 8 p.m. Period. And I'm not even going to walk to them to say good night. I just block it and sit there. And they start coming out like this.
I love it. Yeah.
Because I know exactly that is in the way. So you let that student on the internet, God knows what time they're going to actually fall asleep. So you expect them, a parent, to wake them up and get them ready or be in school or not to miss the bus. Again, that depends on a parent. And
Quality sleep.
And what capacity they have to do that. And oftentimes, some parents are even out of the house before the child because they have to be at work. So I'm giving all this example just to say, it's a lot more than just like providing a school bus. No.
No.
It's not just that. There's more into it, and we need to dare having those conversations with the parents, with the families, and really, to some, they just need to be educated about the simple example I gave.
Yeah, right.
And to others, it's just really about the rules and what you're going to be missing to actually be at the grade level if you are not timely at a school setting or in a school at your classes. We just need to have those, I'm going to call them tough conversations with families, honestly speaking. To me, that's the only remedy, and it's been working for me.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So just to finish this off, I think Senate Ed, the bills that they're working on, I've already mentioned the PCB legislation, the chronic absenteeism. They're also looking at technology in schools, the miscellaneous ed bill, and then Act 73 follow-up legislation. The House is currently working on a library bill, a bill that you've probably read about this in the newspaper, but where law enforcement can go in a building and who gets to make that decision. They're also looking at pre-K in the Northeast Kingdom Choice District and the ability to send tuition dollars to public schools in New Hampshire because they're, one of those border districts. And then House Ways and Means is planning updates to the property tax, updates to allow the foundation formula to work, and then updates that are going to provide that shift from the BOCES, which are the Boards of Cooperative Educational Services, to CSEAs.
What was that last, what?
It's CSEAs.
CSEA.
CSEAs. Anything to add? All right. Brian, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So let's see, Sarah Buxton and I met this morning to talk about a plan moving forward with the committee. She is working on a memo with Jules Campbell that will go to committee members. My hope is to bring everybody in as close to at the same level of understanding our work, its history, definitions, all that stuff as best as possible. One of the best professors I ever took was a fellow who, for the Middle Ages, he knew that all of us in the seminar were not interested in becoming medievalists, but he had us first kind of get up to date and understand the Middle Ages in general. And I'm hoping everybody else to do the same kind of thing. So Sarah and Jill Briggs-Campbell are working on that draft, which they'll share with me. I hope to meet with Jill a little bit this week, next week, and start to talk a little bit about witness lists, ideas for conversations. I would hope our first meeting would be, we're meeting on the 18th?
I think the 20th.
Our next state board meeting?
Yeah, I think it's the 20th.
Okay. I hope to have
I'll tell
it
you.
before our next state board meeting. Let me see if there's any other notes, things that I want to mention. No, I know there's seems to be incredible interest and enthusiasm for the work, which is great. And as I said to the chair when first asked to take on this noble position, I needed to get through a few things myself before kicking things off. So that's where we're at.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have the ratification of the approval of the WIDA English Language Development Standards Framework. So as the board recalls, at our last meeting, Tammy had made a motion to amend the agenda to include not just a discussion of the WIDA standards and committee update, but also an actual vote. So we did the vote. I believe it passed. We all voted and it passed unanimously. And just in a belts and suspenders kind of way, we are going to ratify our vote because it was part of this month's agenda. And then that will just make it clear to members of the public that this was sanctioned board activity. So I will entertain a motion to ratify the action taken by the State Board of Education at its March 19th, 2026 meeting to adopt the WIDA English Language Development Standards Framework as recommended by the Student Performance Standards Committee pursuant to the board's authority under 16 VSA Section 164(9).
So moved.
All right, thank you. Brian?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tammy. Seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the motion, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye.
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 I believe we are unanimous. All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
And I don't know, this was actually mentioned last night in our committee, and I probably should have put this under board announcements, but Ed Week actually picked up the state's work on this and featured it.
Oh, wow.
I can share that out with everyone. It's been viewed as a national model for what we're doing around English language standards and funding and things along those lines.
That's great. All right. This brings us to future meeting planning. So I guess on my list, I had mentioned this earlier, but Sarah is going to provide the board with a presentation on conflicts of interest. There are, sort of guidelines out there, and she thought it'd be a good refresher just to put that out there, and we can have a discussion about it. We'll have the secretary report, independent school approvals, I believe, committee updates, perhaps the tuition appeal, if that's ready to go. We will see. And anything else to add to the agenda before we start talking about location? Okay, so the location, we're going to be at Lake Region for Caleb. Looking forward to that. And the one other thing, not with regard to our May meeting, but we had talked last month about the idea of taking off a month in the summer. My first thought was, no, we're doing a lot of work. My second thought is we are doing a lot of work, but a lot of that work is currently in committee. So I actually do feel like we could probably skip a month this summer and let board members take a breather. My personal preference would be the month of August. As opposed to July. I don't know if anyone feels strongly one way or another. I guess Caleb, it doesn't matter.
I don't have
Caleb's going to be on his way to DC.
Okay.
I remember my first meeting was in August. It was down in Rutland. And it did help me as a student, like mentally getting back into like using my brain.
Okay.
Instead of like being phased out for 3 months. But it's not like it made like the difference of like, it's not like it was a catastrophic difference.
Well, and I think if we take August off, that means that we would be meeting in July, and hopefully we will have a new student on board for the July meeting.
July, mine.
Okay, terrific.
Lake Region's in what town?
I think it's considered Orleans.
Is it Orleans?
Yeah.
So from Bennington, if I need to get a flight, it would be Montreal, and then you guys could pick me up.
It's the closest
I think Montreal's probably closer.
That's what I'm thinking.
Come the night before.
That's right.
All right, anything else? All right, hearing none. I don't know if we have any members of the public who wish to address the board, but this is our second public to be heard. Not seeing anyone, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right,
Come
second.
on, Rich, go for the second.
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, we stand in adjournment. Thank you all. Great meeting. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Media Factory.
I'll get some dates out for all of us. I just couldn't figure it out. I've got a whole bunch of travel.